Are there some things about Noah that no one has ever told you, right? Things that few churches talk about and few pastors preach about. Things that might open your eyes to things you never knew about the flood and the events surrounding it. Well, today, I'm going to share with you 5 insights that will definitely change how you think about Noah in this episode of Misreading Scripture. Now, before we start, if you're interested in learning more insights that will help you to understand the Bible more clearly and see it with an entirely new set of eyes, then make sure to click the link above and down in the description where you can download a free book I wrote called 10 Words That Will Change the Way You Read the Bible. It's a quick but powerful read that will teach you a whole lot in just a short period of time, just like this video. Speaking of, let's dive in. One of the things that few churches talk about when it comes to Noah is his name and what it really means. You see, in Genesis 5, at the end of Adam's genealogy through Seth, Scripture says, "And he called his name Noah, saying, 'This one shall relieve us from our work, and from the hard labor of our hands, from the ground which Yahweh had cursed.'" Now the word for Noah here is the Hebrew word Noach, right? And it's related to the Hebrew word Nacham, which means to comfort or to give relief. And this is why Noah's father says that he will relieve his people from their work. But this actually raises another question, and that's, what work, right? What is Noah giving his people relief from? What is his father talking about when he says that Noah will relieve his people from the hard labor of their hands and from the ground? And to see the deeper connection here, we actually have to look at another word in this verse, and that's the word for cursed. Noah's father says that he is relieving his people from the ground that Yahweh has cursed. And the word that he's using here is the Hebrew word erah. And when we look back at the last time it was used, we actually clearly see what Noah's father means. You see, the last time erah was used was just one chapter ago, in chapter 4, after Cain slew Abel, when God said, "So now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive the blood of your brother from your hand." This is the curse that Noah's father is talking about. And what this shows us is that after Cain slew Abel, the ground didn't only refuse to produce for Cain, it stopped producing, period. For generation after generation, this curse consumed the earth. And here's the really important thing for us to understand here. This isn't God's fault. It's Cain's. Right? When God created humans, God gave them dominion over the earth. We were put in charge of the earth and its well-being. And so when we sin, not only does it hurt us, it hurts the whole earth, all of God's creation. So what's so ironic about all of this is that in many ways, the flood is actually a gift. It not only renews humanity, it renews the entire earth, removing the curse brought on by Cain. When the flood's over, humanity will be able to reproduce the land, right? Generations will be able to eat from the land, and all of creation will be restored to what it should be. But before that can happen, Noah actually has some work to do. And that leads us to the next thing that most people don't know about Noah. You see, in almost every picture of the story of Noah, you see Noah gathering 2 of every animal. There are even children's songs about it, right? 2 by 2, Noah gathered the animals of the earth. But did you ever realize that that's not exactly what Scripture says? You see, when most of us have read this story, and when most children's books have depicted it, the focus has solely been on Genesis 6:19, where God says, "You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you." But then, just a few verses later, God says, "From all the clean animals you must take for yourself 7 pairs, a male and its mate. And from the animals that are not clean you must take 2, a male and its mate. As well as from the birds of heaven 7 pairs, male and female, to keep their kind alive on the face of all the earth." Now that's different than what we imagine. Yes, Noah is to bring a pair of each animal, male and female, but he's also required to bring 7 pairs of clean animals. Now, perhaps this is for the purpose of sacrifices or eating while they're living aboard the ark, but either way, there were a lot more animals present on that ark than we often picture. And Noah had a much bigger task on his hands than we imagine. But that's not the only thing that looked different in the story of Noah and the ark. Another thing that most people don't know about the story of Noah is just how differently Noah saw the world than we do. You see, as Genesis narrates the story of the flood, it says, "In the 600th year of the life of Noah, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day all the springs of the great deep were split open, and the windows of heaven were opened." Now, pay close attention to what that just said. It said that the windows of the heavens were opened and the springs of the great deep. Right? Water came from above and below. Which raises the question, what does that mean? Right? Like, how can that be? And to answer the question, we have to understand how Noah saw the world. And in order to understand that, we actually have to go back to the story of creation. You see, in Genesis 1, it says, "And God said, let there be a vaulted dome in the midst of the waters, and let it cause a separation between the waters. So God made the vaulted dome, and he caused a separation between the waters which were under the vaulted dome, and between the waters which were over the vaulted dome. And it was so. And God called the vaulted dome heaven, and there was evening, and there was morning, the second day." Now, these are verses that have caused a lot of confusion throughout the centuries, especially in more recent years. Because at first glance, it's hard to imagine exactly what the Bible's describing here. And there are two primary reasons for this, right? The first is translation. The word that is translated vaulted dome here is the Hebrew word rakia. It's a word that in other English translations is translated firmament or expanse or even canopy. But when we look at the Hebrew word itself, we actually see a meaning of this word that really gives us a sense of what the Bible is trying to describe. You see, the word rakia is a word that also describes a sheet of metal that has been beaten flat. So in other words, Genesis is saying that on the second day, God put a protective barrier in the sky. Now, today, we can come up with all sorts of explanations for what that might be, right? We might even say that this is our atmosphere, protecting us from the dangers of space and allowing life to exist on our planet. And while that is definitely true, there's something else going on here too. And that's actually going to lead us to the second reason that these verses are difficult for many to understand today, which is that most people in the Bible, people like Noah, saw the world very differently than we do today. You see, when the people of the ancient world looked up at the sky, they saw blue. And when they looked at the waters around them, they also saw blue. At times, the waters would even fall from those blue skies. And so there existed this belief that just as there were waters in the seas around them and below them, there was also water in the skies above them. This is what Genesis 7 is describing as it describes the flood. It's saying that the heavens were opened up and they let down water from above. And the ground opened up and it let forth the water from below. This is why the earth flooded so completely, so quickly, right? Not exactly how we imagined it or how we've seen it depicted, but just as Scripture describes it. And that actually leads us to one other thing about Noah that looks different than we might imagine, which is the moment that many consider to be Noah's downfall. You see, after the flood, as Noah and his sons begin to rebuild the earth, Scripture says, Noah, a man of the soil, proceeded to plant a vineyard. When he drank some of its wine, he became drunk and lay uncovered inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. When Noah awoke from his wine and found out what his youngest son had done, he said, "Cursed be Canaan. The lowest of slaves will he be to his brothers." Now, for most of my life, I was told that this terrible incident was a consequence of Noah getting drunk, right? He drank too much wine, his son saw him naked, and all of this led to a terrible curse. But this isn't actually the point of this story at all. In fact, that's not even what happened, right? You see, the issue at hand here isn't that Noah drank too much. It isn't even that his son Ham saw him naked. None of this merits a curse that will impact an entire nation of people for generations. Right? What happens here is something much, much worse. You see, the phrase, "see your father's nakedness," is an idiom. It can mean to lie with your father or even your father's wife. It goes way beyond walking into the room and catching someone undressing. This is assault. Right? What the author of Genesis is trying to tell us is that Ham took advantage of either Noah or Noah's wife. It was shameful and forbidden. In fact, it was exactly the kind of behavior that God had just flooded the world to prevent. This is why Ham's descendants, the Canaanites, are cursed. Ham's behavior threatened to undo everything that God had just done. It was more than an accident. It was an awful act of abuse. And now that we understand what that idiom means, we understand why God's response is so severe. Well, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for watching. Now, if you haven't done so already, please take a moment to click the link above or down in the description and download my free book called 10 Words That Will Change the Way You Read the Bible. And if you'd like to see more videos like this one, videos that will change the way you see challenging passages of the Bible, then just click this link over here. Thank you again for watching. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.